Hi, and welcome to the ACEC Civil 3D User Group quarterly webinar. My name is Keith Sawinski. I am the Civil 3D Implementation Engineer for the Wisconsin Department of Transportation. With us today, we also have Eric Gates and Mitch Lavin. Eric Gates works for Envision CAD and has been part of the methods development team since our Civil 3D 2014 implementation. Mitch Lavin is our most recent addition to methods development and brings a lot of valuable Civil 3D project delivery experience. Today we are going to present our Civil 3D 2018 implementation, which will be available for download sometime next week. We have a lot of material that we want to cover today, but we also want to be available to answer questions. I expect the presentation to take most of the hour. Please use the questions section of the GoToWebinar control panel to submit your questions. We'll answer what we can during the meeting and address the rest offline. Topics for today's agenda include improvements to the WisDOT configuration, installation, and update process, improvements to the user interface, reference templates, plot style changes, project version migration, decisions, and workflow. We'll talk about some of the new tools we've developed for Civil 3D 2018, and we'll cover some of the other current and upcoming initiatives that our Civil 3D team is working on. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Eric to cover our configuration, installation, and update processes.
Hello, I'm going to cover the WisDOT Civil 3D Downloader. WisDOT has developed a more automated process this time for consultants to install the update and update the Civil 3D 2018 standards and customizations. We call it the WisDOT Civil 3D Downloader. This utility will eventually be used for WisDOT 2016 as well, and will replace the package extractor. If you downloaded that in the past, we'll be replacing that. The downloader MSI will be available on the Civil 3D files with Wisconsin Department of Transportation webpage, along with the install guide and a what's new PDF. You can see on the bottom where the location will be. We will have this available again sometime next week. I'm going to give you a really quick demonstration of how the downloader works. It really can be automated, and we have two options for it. We have an option to install directly onto a local machine and also onto a server deployment. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to download it and you're going to click the install. At that point, you're just going to follow the dialogues. A couple little screens there. You click next, follow through the dialogue. At that point, it's going to put an icon on your desktop. You're going to click that icon. It's going to check the FTP connection really quick to make sure the FTP connects. There's Civil 3D versions, there's deployment types, local installation, and auto update are the user express mode. What you can see here is it's going to look at the FTP site. It's going to download the latest zip file. It builds a temporary extraction path, and it also creates an install script. At the bottom of the dialog box, you can see the latest update that's on the FTP site, along with the installed update on the local machine. Right there, I click the what's new, and we'll have what's new available right there on the dialog. Basically, in express mode, all you have to hit is the deploy button. Obviously, I've sped this up a lot, but what happens is it downloads it, extracts it, and then uses an updater to install it right onto the WisDOT, or onto your local machine, excuse me. Once you exit, you'll see that it's put 3 icons on your desktop. At that point, you can just open up Civil 3D WisDOT version, and here we see we've got 3 ribbons now: WisDOT Design, WisDOT Sheets, and WisDOT Tools. Obviously, on the first go around, you should go over to the Refresh Configure Systems profile, select that to get it completely, the profile completely set and refreshed. So that's basically the really quick example. Obviously, we have the Civil 3D apps that comes on board. That tool is used for all the versions that are not used in on Civil 3D. We'll have more explanation about that in the documentation that you'll see on the website. Here I'm showing you a little example of when you set it for server-based deployment. On server-based deployment, you're going to use the advanced option. This way you can set the extract path and also set the install script. Okay. So all of this, again, will be on the install instructions on the web page. Right. So I mentioned the Wis DOT Civil 3D Updater, all right? That's what gets installed with the downloader, okay? This utility is used in conjunction with the downloader to install and update the Civil 3D Wis DOT configuration. So the downloader grabs the stuff from the FTP site. This thing is the one that does the actual install into the local machine. This will replace the maintenance tool that you now have, or could have, depending on your deployment options. Now I'll show you a brief example of how the updater works. I clicked it. Let's see, get that. There we go. Let's run that. Okay, this is the updater. What it does is it takes the settings from the downloader, the things I set for, in this case, I set it for a server install, and it's going to take those locations, and it's basically going to just grab all that information that you set up in the downloader, and it's automatically going to install updates. I have Civil 3D on right now, so this is grayed out. You have to have Civil 3D off in order to use it. But basically, this is the interim process then. Once the downloader downloads the packages on a server deployment, this is then used to move the information onto the local machine. When the downloader is set to the express mode, this is used in the background to just basically install the stuff right to the local machine. Okay. There is an option to allow updates to install automatically. What that means is that if you have a local install or deployment install, once somebody in the IT department or some other CAD manager installs it onto the server, having this checked, once that is installed onto the server, this tool will look and see if there's an update and then prompt the dialog box to open. It will never run the update. It'll always allow the user to dismiss it in case you're doing something within Civil 3D. It'll always allow you to dismiss it, but it's an option there so that it'll basically put the update in your face and say, hey, there's an update. Okay. You can always go and recheck the settings. What that'll do is recheck this information. Like I said before, this is also going to be available with 2.16 version. We're still working on that, and that should be available in the coming short period within this next quarter. So, WisDOT desktop shortcuts. So the WisDOT staff, you're not going to see the downloader. We have that in the background in some scripts and things we're running with the group update policies, and you're going to just see the Civil 3D updater the Civil 3D apps. Again, the apps are all of the tools that don't need to reside in Civil 3D and can run on their own, and are actually all of them are non-version specific. And then there's the Civil 3D 2018 WisDOT shortcut to open up Civil 3D. And you'll notice WisDOT consultants using a local installation could have all 4 of those. If you have a server deployment, whoever ran the downloader will have the downloader on their desktop, and you'll just have the updater, the Civil 3D apps, and the WisDOT Civil 3D shortcut. All right, let's take a look at the WisDOT user interface. Move over to the Autodesk here. There we go. All right, let's take a look at some of these goodies. The first thing you'll notice that it's very similar to 16. Okay, we kind of built off of WisDOT 16 settings. Like I showed before in the short little video, we only have 3 ribbons, not 4 now. We have the WisDOT Design, the WisDOT Sheets, and the WisDOT Tools ribbon. One of the things we've done, the first thing we did was we created a managed support. This basically, in 16 it was the tools, now it's managed support. We've added a couple functionalities to it. First of all, the managed support stays in all of the ribbons, so you can access it no matter which ribbon you're in. Second, we have access straight to the WisDOT Civil 3D knowledge base. I'll open up the knowledge base. We have the WisDOT Civil 3D request for internal users to request options, and then we have the WisDOT Standards CTB PDF. Okay, since we've moved to a new standard plot style standard CTB, we figured that it'd be nice to have that information right there for you. We'll access that a little bit later. In managed support, we can now switch colors, light or dark. It's not going to matter. You can also have your startup setting to whatever startup setting you have. Some of the other tools that we have is the WisDOT subassembly. We have now simplified. If you look over here on the side, you can see that we have made a few less tabs and created a roadway tab that has all of the groupings of roadway subassemblies. And then we have a daylight, slopes, a general subassembly, subsurfaces, and then the subassemblies. So it should be a little easier. You don't have to hit quite as many tabs. We've had that grouped into basically workflow groupings. And we took out the Autodesk subassemblies. So the out-of-the-box Autodesk subassemblies, we have a button for, but we've taken it out of the base WisDOT subassembly. This is going to make updating and customizing a little bit easier, and we don't have to constantly continue with the out-of-the-box in the process. What we did do is we gave you a button for the Autodesk subassemblies to come up, and we forced it to go right to the generics tab, because that's oftentimes in the workflow, that's often the different subassemblies that you want to use in conjunction with the WisDOT subassemblies. Another thing we did was with the tools or the reports and macros, we've added them into a palette now. So if you go into any of the reports, let me pull this over. There you go. If you access the reports, you'll notice they're now in a palette. We can allow for docking. We can put them on different screens, and they stay open as long as you want them open. So as you run different reports, they add to a tab, right? So now you have a tab of those. So you can have 2 or 3 reports open at a time if the workflow calls for that, or the macros. The same thing with the macros. If you want to get rid of any one of those or dismiss them, you simply make them current and hit the X button, and they go away. So it's the same thing with the macros. We have a separate macros palette. Oops. Each time you grab a macro, it adds a tab to the palette, and you're able to use them simultaneously. You can also use them in between drawings, so you can switch between drawings as well. So that was another addition we added to the user interface for Civil 3D 2018. See if I'm let's go back to there we go. Now. So with that, you'll definitely want to poke around and look at all the different goodies. That was just a really short demonstration of what's available. Most of all the tools that we had previously are still available. One other area that I did want to cover back over there again. Was in the sheets area. We've combined some of the sheets area a little bit, and we have added a couple tools here and cleaned them up a little bit. We have all components button that you can just add all the components in at once. We've added the design center. This is done in 16.2, but late. If you didn't get the latest update, you may not have those things. And then added the ability to run a multi-page setup tool. I believe Mitch will show you a little bit about how to use that further on in this presentation. Let's see, which one do I go here now? Nope. There we go. All right, now I'm going to give Keith back the presentation, and he's going to talk about reference templates.
Thank you, Eric. Many of you may have attended or seen my presentation at the fall workshop. At that time, we were pretty excited about reference template functionality. Since then, we've done some extensive testing and decided that reference template functionality is not quite ready for us to implement. There are two key issues that need to be addressed before we incorporate reference templates into our standards. First, there needs to be additional control over layer settings. We found that the reference template will override the layer settings of the current drawing. For instance, if you make a bunch of color changes for some custom plot output, those will be overridden by the reference template the next time it is synchronized. We feel that it should work more similar to the viz retain variable for X references, where the user should get to choose if layer changes are retained or locked into the source drawing. Second, we would like to see much more granular control over reference templates. We feel that additional control would make the reference templates much more friendly from an enterprise standpoint. So the template structure you see with our Civil 3D 2018 configuration will look very similar to what we have with our Civil 3D 2016 configuration. None of this means that you can't use reference templates for your organization. I'm sure many of you will probably find some great uses for this functionality. I'll just caution you to be careful with them because it's pretty easy to accidentally overwrite something that you did not intend. We've provided our feedback to Autodesk, and hopefully some additional improvements will be made. Now let's talk about plot style changes. Again, this will be review for anyone who attended my fall workshop session, but I think it's good material to cover again. I'm sure many of you already know that WisDOT is adopting CTB plotting for Civil 3D 2018. Before I get into why and how, I think it's important to understand what all this really means. There are two types of plot style tables available with AutoCAD. STB, which is name-based plot styles, and CTB, which is color-based plot styles. While STB is available with AutoCAD, CTB is the native plot style functionality that AutoCAD is based on. There are not many functional differences between STB and CTB. Both plot styles can control color, line type, line weight, etc., or defer that control to the layer. For STB drawings, the plot style table requires the creation of plot styles that can be named anything you want. The layers can then be assigned a plot style from the table. The image on the slide is a sample from our Civil 3D 2016 template. You can see that the plot style name assigned to the layer references the plot style table. In our Civil 3D 2016 configuration, the plot styles control color and line weight. Prior to Civil 3D, WisDOT used MicroStation for plan production. Based on our past MicroStation experience, it seemed logical to use name-based plot styles when we first implemented Civil 3D. In a CTB plot style table, instead of creating a name for each plot style, there is a plot style for each of the 256 indexed colors. So the only difference is that the color of the layer or object determines what the plot style is. Notice in the image that the plot style column is grayed out. This is because color determines the plot style. Just like an STB plot style table, the plot styles can defer to the layer or object for plotting output control. The type of plot style table used is determined by a drawing setting. If you want to use a CTB plot style table, you must be using a CTB drawing or template. Switching a drawing or template from STB to CTB or vice versa requires a conversion or mapping process. So why is WisDOT switching to CTB? Well, since our initial implementation of Civil 3D, we have run into some headwinds using STB. First, we have experienced several product defects related to STB. I'll just name a couple examples. One, the 2013 ACAD STB template shipped with errors out of the box. Another example, Civil 3D plot style overrides do not work for alignments, profiles, and survey figures. The second reason is that Civil 3D does not ship with a Civil 3D STB template. There is an AutoCAD STB template, but the process of converting that to a Civil 3D template is susceptible to errors. Civil 3D does ship with a CTB Civil 3D template, but converting that to STB is also susceptible to errors. We essentially have to start from scratch to create our STB templates for each Civil 3D version. Finally, AutoCAD from a historical perspective was built based on CTB. STB was more of an afterthought or later addition. AutoCAD has used CTB templates since its inception in 1982. STB was first introduced into the product in 2000. You can observe where the Autodesk development teams focus their efforts by looking at the templates they provide. Civil 3D currently installs with 66 different templates. They include templates for Civil 3D, AutoCAD, Map 3D, and various plan production templates. Of those 66 templates, only 4 of them are STB. And of those 4, all of them are specifically intended for AutoCAD, not Civil 3D. We are fully aware that folks are tired of plot style changes. This has been an area of our Civil 3D implementation that has experienced some growing pains. Trust me when I say that we're tired of changing it too, but the decision was not made lightly, and the timing is strategic based on several factors. First, Civil 3D 2018 is a DWG format change. Many will see that DWG format change as enough reason not to migrate their project data. So aligning this change in plotting with the Civil 3D 2018 implementation helps reduce the impact to users. Second, we are at the beginning of a Windows operating system change, Windows 10. And we know that our current version, Civil 3D 2016, is running well and is supported in Windows 10, which we expect to be around a while. And three, we feel that we have a very strong customization in place for Civil 3D 2016, with everything you need to finish a project. Our existing plan is that this change to CTB will be our last major plotting standards change. We also recognize that a full CTB implementation would require a large learning curve. It's very different from how we are used to working. This is why we are implementing CTB primarily in name only. You could call it CTB Lite, if you will. Our templates will be CTB, but the colors assigned to the WisDOT layers will largely remain the same. The CTB tables will control standard output colors only, so black and gray. Everything else will be controlled at the layer level. This will minimize any impact on our planned production workflows. The colors that you are used to seeing will remain the same. We will accomplish the gray and black division by setting all of the E or existing layer colors to color numbers ending in 1. This will result in the exact same colors for proposed features, but the existing features will look a little more pastel. This change has the added benefit of quickly identifying existing objects versus proposed objects just by looking at the color and model space. If you want a certain layer or color, or excuse me, a certain layer or object to plot color, you just need to set the color to the RGB equivalent. True color will always plot color. Instead of developing various plot style tables, we will be expanding our usage of layer states to accomplish various plot outputs. So once again, I really want to stress that we are not changing our layer and object colors. I'm going to hand it back to Eric Gates, and he's going to do a brief demonstration on this topic.
Okay, what I've got here is a relatively very simple drawing here, just to show you some of the basics of setting up a drawing to work with the CTB plot style table. It's exactly the same as the STB, really. So what we have here is we have a couple objects that are all on layer 0. So I've got something that's really, completely hosed up. There's nothing set, nothing WisDOT about it at all. Everything's set on layer, everything's by layer, it's plotting black. Okay. If I go over to the layout, I can see that everything's plotting black. Or at least I think, right? The first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that in these new drawings, we have the latest plot style table. Well, the easiest way to do that within Civil 3D world is to go over to the WisDOT Sheets tab and grab the page setups. The page setups are going to be predefined with the table assigned to the page setup. In this case here, I'm going to grab the PDF 8.5 by 11, select that. Then go to the multi-page tool, select that, I'm going to hit refresh all, and here I can see the page setup is installed into the drawing. I can grab that and set it to the layout. Hit refresh again, and now the layout has the page setup. That page setup, what is that page setup? Page setup has the latest WisDOT standards at CTB. So you don't have to worry about going finding it. You can just use the page setup. So once we have that page setup, now we can see, okay, this is using STB and it's still black, right? To modify these objects so that they would plot gray, we can grab the object and just switch the color. Well, what color do we want to switch it to? Again, we talked about the CTB, and Keith expanded on this a little bit. We didn't change any of the colors, so all of the colors are going to plot black, except for ones ending in 1. They will plot gray. We've added a couple other ones, 22 through 29, for a little different options of gray, and then more options of gray are between 241 and 254 if you want to adjust the depth of gray. And then we have 255 for masking. So you can take a look and reference this CTB. By referencing that, let's say we want to create the first line here, gray. We could just grab the object, change the color to, let's say, 11, and it should plot gray. To distinguish between these two black ones, we can set this color to red. Red does not end in 1. Green does not end in 1. And then we can make these two, let's say, make them masked, right? So we can go ahead and switch them to something like a 255. If we come over to the layout, we can now see that we've modified those objects, right? We modified those objects so they match the plot style. But that's not really what we want to do, right? If we look into the layer manager, that's changing the object, but it's not changing the layer. If we go into the demo layers here, we notice that they're all set to black, and we want them to be set to the right layer color so that the plot style table treats them with the way they're supposed to be treated, whether they're masked, whether they're gray, or whether they're black. So how do we do that? Well, we use layer states. Easiest way to grab the layer states is go up to the WisDOT Sheets ribbon. On the plot configurations panel, we're going to go to the layer states. This opens up the layer states palette. We're going to grab the WisDOT all layer states, and we're going to load that. Notice right when I did that the widths were modified and the colors were set to the WisDOT colors that's been used since 2016. Okay. Well, that's fine, but these objects still aren't using the layers to control. They're not using layer properties to control the color. They are hard-coded, right? So to make them be controlled by the layers, what do we need to do? We need to set those to by layer. So objects that are by layer are going to take on that layer. They're still on layer 0. So what we can do is we can go and switch those to I have these preset on the right layer. Notice it now switched color and switched line type. If I do that again for all of these, I'm going to just match what's on the right layer. I'm going to match this line to the text that's on the right layer. And then I'll match these two. Now we have page setup that's grabbing the plot style table. We have a layer state now that's coming into the drawing that is setting the right colors for the layer. And then by setting these objects onto the right layer, they now plot correctly. Okay, so there's a mixed match of different options you can do, but leveraging the palettes for the layouts, or for the page setups, and for the layer states will help quite a bit. Let's say we want to modify colors, right? We want to actually modify this layer on roadway berm. We're going to go over to the layer manager, grab the color of the layer, select the True Index tab, use the RGB mode, and by doing that, it now sets this to the RGB color. This worked the same way in if this was an STB table too. RGB, setting a color to RGB always overwrites the plot style table to print the actual color. This object set to that layer. We go over here and we see that now that's set to a color. If we wanted to maintain that as a default of some sort, we could go over into the WisDOT sheets, go into the layer states, manage layer states, and we can create a new layer state here and save that configuration. Okay. So that's a really quick demo on how if you don't have, how you can just set up any drawing to match the STB, and a little bit about how the page setups and layer states work. I think I'm now going to switch it over to Mitch. Is that correct?
That is correct. All right, yeah. Again, this is Mitch Lavin. Today I'm going to talk to you about some project version migration between 2016 and 2018, and then also a few new tools that were introduced with the 2018 configuration. First of all, is project migration. In order to understand the project version migration decision-making process, you must first understand all of the factors that contribute to the process. One key factor to understand is the difference between Civil 3D versions and the DWG versions. The project version migration process is complicated by a change in the DWG version because it requires that all the project's files be upgraded to the newer version. It also requires additional attention to good project data management. Those of you who have migrated a project from Civil 3D 2012 to Civil 3D 2014 have probably experienced this. On the other hand, if the next version of Civil 3D uses the same DWG version as your project's current version of Civil 3D, project version migration tends to be simpler. In the case of moving from Civil 3D 2014 to 2016, you could upgrade as you go. You could have Civil 3D 2014 drawings and 2016 drawings intermingled in the same project, and the data shortcuts would still function. This is speaking strictly from a Civil 3D version, DWG version perspective. There are also other factors at play. In the case of a WisDOT Civil 3D project, drawing standards have played a big role in deciding to migrate a project to the next version. Specifically, we implemented plotting standards changes in Civil 3D 2016 that were completely different from what we included in our 2014 standards. The standards were implemented to solve recurring issues that we were encountering in support, but on the downside, it made it more difficult to move projects from Civil 3D 14 to Civil 3D 2016. Civil 3D also contains a plotting standard change, switching from STB to CTB. Moving a project from Civil 3D 2016 to 2018 should not be taken lightly. It will require both a DWG format change and a WisDOT plotting standards change. This doesn't mean that it cannot or should not be done. It just means that some factors must be considered. The most obvious is probably the project size. The more project files you have, the more data cleanup there is to do, and the more project files you need to convert to CTB. And then also there's more design and plan drawings to upgrade as well. You must weigh the time invested against what you really are gaining. Finally, you should consider the expected longevity of the design project. If it is a really long project duration, it may be in your best interest to migrate now when you have less files rather than later. The project longevity factor requires more of a crystal ball outlook because you do not know what the future holds. There could be future operating system changes that affect Civil 3D. The project could be delayed or advanced, or additionally, you should also consider the longevity of the Autodesk support of the version of Civil 3D you are using. Typically, Autodesk has been supporting 4 versions of Civil 3D. Let me hide my screen here, my control panel. There we go. All right. So now we have taken all those factors in the migration process and produced a flowchart. This flowchart may be difficult to see through this webinar at this time, but we'll be posting this flowchart in a migration guide that will on the Civil 3D knowledge base prior to the release of the Civil 3D standards. This flowchart strictly should be only used as a guide. Every project has its own circumstances that need to be accounted for. So I guess we're now into the meat and potatoes of it. I'm going to briefly talk about the migration process itself. We did put together a in-depth document describing how to completely migrate a project and all of its drawings to Civil 3D 2018. This is just an example of what you're going to see on the knowledge base prior to the release of the Civil 3D customization, so everybody can have it once the customization is pushed out. This document covers important information about migration, repairing the existing project, converting to CTB, updating layers and optional steps that are dependent on drawing content, including plan sheets, pipe networks, and corridor drawings, and also some other good info that you might be interested in. The important thing to remember about migrating to Civil 3D 2018 is that all drawings must be converted to Civil 3D 2018 drawing format once the process begins. Generally, the order of operations is extremely important in the migration process. It is typically the best practice to work from top to bottom and left to right in the project data workflow map, which is posted on the Civil 3D knowledge base. Here's the PDF of the project workflow map. As I said, work from top to bottom, left to right in the workflow for the conversion. Start with the base data, work through the topo drawings, utility drawings, existing surface, and then work through design, including alignment, profiles, corridor drawings, edge lines, surfaces, pipe networks, quantities, and then into the plan sheet drawings. That way, when you get to the plan sheet drawings, if there's any drawings that are external reference, you can update those external references right away, and they're already converted to Civil 3D 2018. Next, I will play a brief video showing conversion process. Mainly the video is just to save time, because some of the processes can take a little time, especially the batch save tool. This video features the new tool, the batch save tool from Autodesk. Currently, this tool has not been released to the public. It's been on the Futures portal, but we expect it to be released soon, and they're pushing it out with Civil 3D 19. And they're also going to be released in the external outside of Civil 3D 19, and it should be out soon, and we're going to try and push it out with our Civil 3D migration or 2018 implementation as well. So we'll see I'm going to go back. We'll see that tool in action here. As soon as I can get back and get my mouse active and hit the play button. There it is. So first of all, we're going to go into Civil 3D 2016 and want to clean up the original project, and that starts with validating the data shortcut references. So go to the Manage tab in any drawing and click Validate Data Shortcuts. This is going to check paths for the data shortcut references and also any object names, and then verify that the data references are correct in the menu. If there's any bad ones, exclamation point would be there. Second, we want to check the external reference menus in most of the drawings or all the drawings. Make sure there's no missing or not found statuses, and make sure that all the external references are typically attached through overlay and relative path. Next, we'll close Civil 3D 2016 once all the drawings are updated and fixed in 2016. And we'll use the batch save utility and clean. They have a clean script that'll clean the drawings and save it in 2016. So we'll pick the custom script of cleaning and then go through and choose the project folder. You can also select subfolders if you want, or exclude some folders. And then choose the options on the bottom. These are what we were recommending. Again, this is all documented in the migration document that we'll be posting on the Civil 3D knowledge base. Once it's done, they'll tell you how many were saved, how many failed. Good thing to do is check the log that's available. And here's one that was failed. It was a recovery file, so it's not a big deal. But typically, you can go into the detailed logs, which are located at C batch save, and review what happened in that drawing, why it didn't save, or why it didn't get fixed. So here we'll go to the batch log 1, and here it said something went wrong. It was a recovery file, so it probably doesn't need to be fixed. But if you have any drawings, it's probably a good idea to go into that drawing manually with Civil 3D 2016 and update or open it, see if you can clean and fix it. Basically, what this clean tool is doing a purge reg apps and audit on the drawings. Next, we'll use the batch save utility again and batch save all the drawings right to Civil 3D 2018 version. So choose 2018 as a target and Q save as a script, and it's gonna go and save all the drawings right to Civil 3D 2018. Here we have the same 47 drawings were saved and one drawing failed. That one that was bad. Now we're going right into Civil 3D 2018 once the batch save is done, and then we can start the conversion process into CTB and updating layers. So I'm going to open my project here and start on the left on the project data workflow map and start with the topo EX file, as that's one of the base files that we need to convert. Going to CTB format is fairly simple to start out. We'll have to type the command convert piece styles. Wait a little bit as soon as I get caught up here. So convert piece styles is the command to convert it to CTB. Type into the command line, hit enter, and a warning box will pop up that says it's going to change the color dependent plot styles. Hit OK and save the drawing. And now we'll need to update the layers using the layer states from the Wis DOT Sheets panel or a ribbon. Click on Wis DOT 18 all layers. In this case, it automatically loaded all the layers, layer state. But if sometimes it won't, if it doesn't, you have to go into the layer state manager, pick the layer state Wis DOT 18 all layers, and in this case, we're going to turn off some of the options, as we don't want those options to be changing on your layer states or on the layer settings. Just leave remain plot, color, and some other ones. Hit restore, and the layer state will be updated, or the layer properties will be updated for that drawing. And here we can see the plot styles are all color-based plot styles. And we have the 231s, which are the new colors for existing objects in 2018. Save the drawing again, and then I'm just going to show the brief difference between Civil 3D 2016 layer settings and Civil 3D 2018 layers. So I'm just going to the layer states. As I mouse over the different layers, you can see the color change. It goes from dark to light between 16 and 18. That's really the only difference you're going to see with is going to be the existing drawings, the existing layers. Overall, the color is not changing. It's just slightly muted, as Keith said. That's all I'm going to show today for time-wise. The migration document further discusses more information on updating block definitions, pipe network drawings, importing Civil 3D styles, corridor drawings, and then updating plan sheets using the multi-page setups. Next, I'm going to talk about some new tools that we have in Civil 3D 2018. These include the Load XREF on Layer tool, Reset XREF layers, import description keys, and the Wis DOT parts. So I'm going to go right to Civil 3D itself and show you where they're at. The Load XREF layer tool is on the Manage and Support tab right here. So it's available on all of the Wis DOT ribbons. And what that does is typically in the past, when you're loading an external reference, it loads to the base layer in the drawing. So in this case, would be 0. Sometimes if somebody's making changes, p miscellaneous text or whatever, and now you're attaching an external reference, that external reference will be on that layer. So this tool loads the XREF on a specified layer that's defaulted to a name of XREF. Let me mouse back over that again. Defaulted to XREF dash the drawing name. So we'll click on it, navigate. There's some favorites. You can add some favorites here on the right. So I'm gonna look at my favorites, and I've got this shortcut here, and we'll go to my project that I've just been working in for that video, and I'll attach, let's say, that topo ex file. Click on that. So now that file will be brought in. We can click on it, and you can see that the layer name is now XREF-topo ex. We can do that again just to kind of show the difference. I'll grab my favorite one again, go here. I'll grab a utility file, open it. Click here, go to my home, and we can look at the different layers now listed. So we got XREF-topo ex and then XREF-UTI-ex. So that's kind of useful just to make sure that they're all in their own layer and keeps things separate from the plant production layers. The next tool that was customized, that was built, is the Reset XREF Layers button. What this was for, if you go and make a change to a layer setting in a source drawing, let's say, you could do it in a topo file or even an edgeline file. If you want to show color or change a certain object to be gray or black, that change doesn't automatically propagate in the layer settings through to the consuming drawings, such as something like this. The only way to get it to change is, or one of the ways, is to detach and reattach the drawing in the external reference menu or manager. What this button does here is it resets. You click on it and it'll reset the layer settings for all the extra external references in this drawing. It'll grab the source layer settings and bring them into the consuming drawing. So you can what's nice is we build this warning message into the tool because sometimes you might not want to do this. So this is like a confirmation that it'll happen. So hit yes, and then it'll grab all the layers, all layer references, all the layer source drawing layer settings. What I forgot to say about the load XREF on layer tool is that it also puts the external references on an overlay type and a relative path. That's key for good data organization in a project. The next tool I wanted to show you guys is also on the WisDOT Tools tab under the WisDOT Macros, is the Import Description Keys button. What this does is is used for working with survey data in non-survey drawings. So you have a design drawing and you want to bring in some survey information. This will be used to assign, or when you import just points or the survey figures, the description keys allow the correct style to be assigned to those objects. So that's there. And then the last one is the pipe network parts list import tool, which is right here under WisDOT design ribbon, and then pipe network utilities, add WisDOT parts list. This is used primarily for upgrading legacy drawings. The standard 2018 design template will have all the parts lists in it already, but for any older drawings, we'll need to use this button to bring in the new 2018 parts list, so you can get the correct pay items, and then you have to bring in the new styles after that. But this will be able, this makes a shortcut and shortcuts the process of updating the drawings with the new parts list. Now I'll pass the baton back to Keith, and he will finish out with a couple more items here. I'll go back to my presentation first. Turn off my
Thank you, Mitch. To wrap up today, we wanted to take a few minutes just to share what else our Civil 3D team is working on. First, we're working on a multi-layer color switch utility. I'm trying to come up with a better name for that, but the title kind of describes what it does. The custom plotting, to make custom plotting as simple as possible, we are building a utility that will give you the ability to change multiple layers to RGB in just a few clicks. Without this tool, users would need to switch layers to RGB one at a time, or at least in groups of the same color. Macro report enhancements. Now that we've moved all of our custom reports and macros to the palette interface, we're going to look for opportunities to improve these tools. So if you're aware of any defects or potential improvements, please let us know. Just another note on that too, it took a lot of rewriting and a rework with moving the macros and reports over to 18. So, if you find any little bugs or anything, please let us know. That kind of thing will happen, especially when you're rebuilding these types of macros. Civil 3D 2016 install retrofit. We invested a lot of time improving the installation and update process for Civil 3D 2018. Now we want to take what we've learned and retrofit our Civil 3D 2016 configuration to take full advantage of those same features. That's something that we're going to be getting started on right away. I'm hoping that can be done, within the next month or so. Daylight subassembly enhancements. We've heard a lot of positive feedback on our daylight subassemblies, the daylight profile control and cut fill profile control. One improvement that we've been told would greatly enhance these two subassemblies is to add support for multiple possible intercept points. This enhancement would give the user additional control over which slope intercept is desired when more than one is possible. This would be especially beneficial on projects with skimmer scratch grading. Project data validation. We've been talking about project data validation for a while now. The purpose of this tool is to provide the user with a way to identify Civil 3D project data management issues. The tool will not fix the problems, but it will find them and hopefully educate users on poor data management practices. This tool has proven to be one of the most complex we've ever taken on, and the development work unfortunately had to take a back seat to get our Civil 3D 2018 implementation complete. However, we are getting close to a beta release that users can try out. AutoTurn 10.2 upgrade. AutoTurn 10.2 was released in January. We are upgrading all internal WisDOT computers within the next couple of weeks. So you can expect that our vehicle library for AutoTurn 10.2 will be posted on the FTP site soon. Internal resource file management system. We recently lost access to the file management system that we use to manage our WisDOT Civil 3D configuration files. We have a temporary home for our files, but we've been looking to migrate our files to a more permanent solution. Now, this doesn't affect any of you directly, but I just want to make you aware of the situation because there could be some growing pains as we make that transition. So we ask for your patience. Finally, monitor and support. We'll be monitoring how Civil 3D 2018 is working out for everyone. As we are made aware of issues or potential improvements, we'll be addressing those. We will also assess improvements that can be backported into our Civil 3D 2016 configuration. That's all we have for you today. We'll be happy to stick around for a few extra minutes to answer any questions. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat or the questions panel. So I guess we'll leave it at that for now, but I encourage anybody, if they have questions or have any issues with the customization after it's released next week, that you can please contact us through our support email address, which is support.cae@dot.wi.gov. Thank you.